Thomas Jefferson, Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Everything by Maria Kalman. Thomas Jefferson had red hair and some freckles, about 20 I think. He grew to be very tall, and oh yes, he was the third president of the United States. He was born in 1743 on a plantation, a very large farm in Virginia. What was he interested in? Everything. I need it. Everything. He loved books. He said, "I cannot live without books." Books on history, science, philosophy, government, mathematics, music, art, and so much more. He read about shrews and shoes and bees and cheese and how to say please in French, Spanish, Latin, Greek, Italian, German, and English, of course. He was quite polite. He designed and built his home on a mountain in Virginia and called it Monticello, which means little mountain in Italian. He kept changing the house all the time. There were 76 windows to let the light and air in. He loved flowers growing and fish in the pond. Another way of saying that is he loved flora and fauna. The house was a museum of his mind. Jefferson was curious about everything. A visitor walking in would see all kinds of collections: maps, mastodon bones, paintings, statues, and Native American artifacts. Like this tribal shield, decorated with a fierce and ferocious beast that could give you nightmares. Nightmares. Why do we have them? Even his bed was interesting. He designed it to be open to 2 different rooms. Jefferson slept slightly sitting up, so he was ready to spring out of bed at the first light of dawn. He wanted to do things. He could either go into his study with his ingenious copy machine and rotating book stand, or he could get out of bed on the other side, jump into his boots, and go outside. Often he would go to his vegetable garden. Thomas Jefferson loved his garden almost more than anything. He believed people should take care of the land and grow healthy food. A garden makes people happy. He thought vegetables should be the main course and meat a side dish. His favorite vegetable was peas. Peas really are wonderful and fun to count. He also loved music. He practiced his violin for 3 hours a day. How did he have time for that? He had a good life, full of work and love, but sadly his beloved wife Martha died young. 4 of their 6 children died before they reached adulthood. Here is his darling Patsy, the only child that lived longer than he did. Jefferson wanted her to be a smart woman and gave her this advice: determine never to be idle. No person will have occasion to complain of the want of time who never loses any. That means don't be lazy. It's boring to be lazy. But wait! We have not spoken of the founding of America. There were many people who wanted the colonies to be free of the tyrannical rule of the English king. They all wanted freedom and were prepared to fight for it. The brilliant Benjamin Franklin of the crazy great hat was one of them. So was John Adams of the fiery temper. He and Jefferson were close friends, except when they were fighting. And of course there was George Washington, another tall redhead. But who could know under that powdered wig? He would command the army during the Revolutionary War. He wore a set of false teeth made from ivory and wires. They fit him badly and hurt him so. Poor George, brave George, by George. I think he did not complain too much. Many men met in this room in Philadelphia to debate the future. Thomas Jefferson, who was a terrible speaker but a great writer, was chosen to write the Declaration of Independence. It is one of the greatest documents ever written and a beacon of liberty for people all over the world. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It would be many years until most Americans were treated equally, but it was the idea on which America was founded, and it is still strived for today. The American Revolution was fought, and the colonies were now independent of Britain. George Washington was elected first president of the United States of America. John Adams was elected the second president. And in 1800, Thomas Jefferson was elected third president of the United States. He was a strong leader with many ideas. He believed in separation of church and state. That means that all people should be free to practice whatever religion they like. Religion should not be part of government. President Jefferson bought land from Napoleon, the brilliant and fierce Emperor of France, and doubled the size of the United States. Napoleon needed the money. It was called the Louisiana Purchase. He sent Meriwether Lewis and William Clark on an expedition to explore the land from the Mississippi River all the way to the Pacific Ocean. They traveled through wild forests and rivers and mountains for 3 years. Such brave men. They met many Native American tribespeople, including Sacagawea. She was only a teenager, but she helped guide them. When Jefferson completed his presidency, he went back to his beloved Monticello. His friend, the Marquis de Lafayette, a Frenchman who helped in the Revolution, came to visit. They would stroll through the gardens, plucking figs from the trees. And while they ate the delicious figs, they would pass the slave quarters on Mulberry Row. The man who said of slavery, "This abomination must end," was the owner of about 150 slaves. The monumental man had monumental flaws. The slaves lived in cramped rooms with few possessions. What did they do? Everything. They toiled and cooked and labored in the fields from dawn till dusk. Jefferson would visit the kitchen each week and wind the grandfather clock. He probably said a few kind words to the cooks. In the fancy dining room, they had the best of everything, even vanilla ice cream, and so many kinds of pudding: apple, bread, huckleberry, lemon, macaroni, orange, plum, quiche, and tapioca pudding, all produced by the endless labor of slaves. Jefferson may have been a kind master, but it was still a horror. Here is Jefferson's farm book with a list of slaves and the supplies they were given. Our hearts are broken. One of the names is Sally. It is strongly believed that after his wife died, Jefferson had children with the beautiful Sally Hemings. Some of them were freed and able to pass for white. Passing for white meant that your skin was so light you could hide the fact that you were partially black. To hide your background is a very sad thing. Perhaps people felt they had no choice in such a prejudiced land. As Jefferson got older, he spent more time outdoors. He no longer cared for fancy clothes. His torn jacket was repaired with socks. He carried a penknife with many tools and would spend many hours riding his horse or walking through his garden and land. He wrote to his friend, "The object of walking is to relax the mind. You should therefore not permit yourself to even think while you walk, but divert yourself by the objects surrounding you. Walking is the best possible exercise." He also had good advice about being mad. When you are angry, count to 10 before you speak. If very angry, to 100. He still read many books. His books were the beginning of the Library of Congress and founded a university. There was always much to be done. On July 4th, 1826, at the age of 83, this extraordinary man died, the same day as his friend John Adams. Here was buried Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of American Independence, of the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom, and father of the University of Virginia. Born April 2nd, 1743, died July 4th, 1826. He is buried at Monticello. Under the gravestone that he designed, he wrote his own epitaph, and he did not mention being president. I wonder why. If you want to understand this country and its people, and what it means to be optimistic and complex and tragic and wrong and courageous, you need to go to Monticello. Walk around the house and the gardens. The linden trees might be in bloom, filling the air with their delicious perfume. Maybe you will lie down under a tree and fall asleep thinking about life, liberty, and the pursuit of everything.